Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Benjamin Netanyahu is coming to address Congress on March 3rd. It is a sneaky, sleazy, slimy mood on the part of two of the most dishonest politicians I have ever watched in my lifetime, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. This is a Republican ploy to undermine not just a Democratic president, the Democratic president that the Republican Party has vowed to destroy in every conceivable manner possible, Barack Obama. And yet, this visit of Netanyahu on March 3rd to address Congress is vital, despite the sleazy political battle into which it has been inserted. Why? Because it's part of something far, far bigger than a domestic battle between two political factions in just one nation. It is about a radical shift in the balance of power that will give the power to obliterate entire states, entire nations, to one of the least trustworthy nations on the face of the planet. It is about our nuclear negotiations with Iran. Obama has many good points. His health program, for example, has taken what was a skyrocketing percentage of our GDP that could have destroyed our economy, that was being dedicated to health care. And there's some question as to whether we could really call that health care, and has leveled it off for the first time in decades. That is an astonishing achievement. But when it comes to international affairs, when it comes to hardball negotiation, Barack Obama is, to quote what one of his high-level officials said about Benjamin Netanyahu, Obama is chicken shit. Remember, Barack Obama drew a red line about the use of chemical weapons in Syria. Then he erased the red line, and he took America's power and credibility in the world down 10 pegs, if not 100. What's at stake in the nuclear negotiations with Iran? Barack Obama seems to regard it as the fashionable thing to do, the thing that will win him praise in history, to conclude a deal with Iran and end a hostility that has been going on since 1979. Well, that's all very nice. But how have the Iranians been using these negotiations? The negotiations began 11 years ago, in 2004. At that point, Iran had almost no centrifuges whatsoever. When the latest round of negotiations began, approximately 14 months ago, Iran was up to 18,000 centrifuges. 18,000 centrifuges. And it had gone through 2 or 3 generations of radical, dramatic upgrades in those centrifuges. Are these centrifuges for what they are claimed to be? To merely generate energy in Iran? To merely generate isotopes that can be used to cure cancer patients? According to the experts, not at all. The only practical use of centrifuges of this kind is to produce nuclear weaponry. What happens if Iran gets nuclear weapons? Well, Iran has been working on intercontinental ballistic missiles to reach the United States ever since 1979, ever since its revolution. And those missiles are designed to carry nuclear warheads. Iran celebrates the obliteration of one state, Israel, every year. It calls its international expeditionary force, which controls a small raft of proxy armies, including proxy armies in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, and now in Yemen. It calls that international force the Quds Brigade. Quds means Jerusalem. In other words, The purpose of that brigade is ultimately to shove the Jews into the sea and take over that tiny little state of Israel. When the Iranian Revolution happened in 1979, there was immediately instituted a new holiday. It's called Quds Day. It's to celebrate the annihilation of the Jews. And a great deal of the time that is spent on Quds Day is spent on disproving that there ever was a Holocaust. Why? Because according to many Muslim people of high standing, including people in Iran, well, Hitler was a Jewish puppet. And World War II was caused by the Jews. Why? To obtain international sympathy so that they could take a state, one of the tiniest states in the world, Israel. But what happens, okay, do we really care about Israel's annihilation? Well, we all say to each other, but if Iran ever attacked Israel with nuclear weapons, we would obliterate Iran with nuclear weapons. Is that likely to happen? Not at all. I was at Iranian television the day that Barack Obama made the speech in which he said that he had Israel's back, and I immediately felt a knife at my back, because this man, and in fact this country in international affairs, cannot be trusted. We abandon our allies. We certainly did that with the South Vietnamese, and we've abandoned many others. But if Israel were annihilated, what difference would it make to the world? It would put nuclear weapons in the hands of a government whose founding father, whose George Washington and Thomas Jefferson's words, resonate in that government today. They are the words that guide the supreme leader who really runs the government in Iran. And what did that founder of modern Iran say? His name was the Ayatollah Khomeini. He established the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, a revolution that many secular, good-hearted Iranians believed they had won for a secular government, only to discover that their government had been snatched from them by religious extremists. Are these really religious extremists? Is the revolutionary leader, the supreme leader in Iran, really somebody we have to worry about? Well, these are the words he follows. These are the words of the Ayatollah Khomeini. You ready? Muslims have no alternative to an armed holy war against profane governments. Holy war means the conquest of all non-Muslim territories. It will be the duty of every able-bodied adult male to volunteer for this war of conquest, the final aim of which is to put Quranic law, the law of the Quran, in power from one end of the earth to the other. All other wars of conquest are unjust and tyrannical and disregard the moral and civilizing principles of Islam. But that's not all that the Ayatollah has to say. Any man or woman, he says, who does not believe in Allah's prophet, Muhammad, is impure in the same way as our excrement, shit, and urine, piss. Islam has obliterated many tribes because they were sources of corruption, in other words, sources of non-Islamic influence. In other words, they believed in the kinds of things you and I believe in. Islam commands its followers to engage in warfare. The leaders of Russia and of England and the President of the United States are infidels, unbelievers. Both law and reason requires that we not allow governments to retain this non-Islamic or anti-Islamic character. All non-Islamic systems of government are the systems of unbelief, since the ruler in each case is an instance of an un-Islamic tyrant, the social environment created by this tyranny and unbelief invariably brings about corruption on earth. This corruption must be swept away. and its instigators punished for their deeds. The just individual opposes them and struggles against them in order to destroy the environment of corruption. We have in reality then no choice but to destroy these systems of government that are corrupt in themselves and also entail the corruption of others. This is a duty that all Muslims must fulfill. And just to be specific about who he means, he does not talk about Israel. He talks about you and me. He says, Europe, the West, is nothing but a collection of unjust dictatorships. All of humanity must strike these troublemakers with an iron hand if it wishes to regain its tranquility. If Islamic civilization had governed the West, we would no longer have to put up with these barbaric goings-on, unworthy even of wild animals. He means democracy. He means what you and I call freedom of speech. He means what you and I call secular government. He means the right to believe in Buddhism, in Darwinism, in science, in whatever you feel you should believe. Is this a government into whose hands we want to put nuclear weapons? Someone has to ring the bell and wake up a sleeping and naive Barack Obama. And the only one who's going to do it is Benjamin Netanyahu. He's the only one with the courage to do it. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to defend and to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for that sneaky, seditious, sleazy, slimy, ever so difficult to find little off button. I think I've got it.